The bell above the small shop door rang softly as the morning sun spilled onto the cracked sidewalk. The scent of warm bread and cheap coffee drifted into the street, mixing with the sound of distant traffic. Ethan Miller wiped his hands on his apron and glanced outside. She was already there. The homeless woman sat on the same spot she always chose, near the faded blue mailbox. Wrapped in a worn gray coat, hair tucked under a fraying scarf. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to warm them with her breath. Ethan sighed quietly, not with annoyance, but with concern. He reached under the counter, filled a paper bag with a sandwich, added a cup of hot tea, and stepped outside. "Morning," he said gently. She looked up, startled at first, then smiled, a tired smile, but real. "Morning," she replied. This was their routine. Every day. No cameras. No thanks expected. Just kindness. Quietly given. "Before we go any further, tell me something. Where are you watching from right now?" "A busy city, a small town. Maybe somewhere that feels forgotten. Drop your city or country in the comments." It's incredible how one small story can travel so far. Ethan owned a tiny repair shop, appliances, old radios, anything people couldn't afford to replace. It didn't make much money, but it paid the bills most months. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to raise his son. Inside the shop, 7-year-old Leo sat on a stool behind the counter, legs swinging as he colored in a book. He looked up when Ethan came back in. "Did you give her breakfast?" Leo asked. Ethan nodded. "Like always." Leo smiled, proud in a way only children can be. "Mom would like that." The words landed softly and sharply. Ethan didn't answer. He just ruffled Leo's hair and went back to work. The woman's name was Grace, or at least, that's what she told him weeks after they first met. She never asked for money. Never asked for more than the food Ethan offered. Some days she barely spoke. Other days she'd tell small stories about buses she'd ridden, jobs she'd lost, a life that slowly slipped away. Ethan never pressed for details. He understood how fragile dignity could be. Years ago, after his wife passed, Ethan had been the one standing in food lines, counting coins, praying his son wouldn't notice how thin the cupboards were. He remembered the looks, the quiet judgment, the way people pretended not to see you when you needed them most. So when Grace showed up outside his shop for the first time, asking only if she could sit where the sun hit the sidewalk, Ethan saw himself. Days turned into weeks. Customers noticed. One man scoffed once. "You know she'd just keep coming if you feed her." Ethan shrugged. "Then she won't be hungry." Another customer warned him. "People will take advantage of you." Ethan didn't argue. He just kept making the sandwich. One rainy afternoon, Grace didn't show up. Ethan found himself checking the sidewalk again and again, pretending it was about business. When evening came and the street stayed empty, a quiet worry settled in his chest. The next morning, she returned soaked, shivering, limping slightly. Ethan didn't ask questions. He handed her the food, then added an extra cup of tea. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried hard not to let fall. "Why do you do this?" she asked quietly. Ethan paused, thought for a moment. "Because once," he said, "someone did it for me." Grace nodded, like she understood more than he'd said. If you were standing where Ethan was seeing the same person every day, knowing you don't have much yourself, what would you do? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if this small moment touched you, tap like to show that kindness still matters. Leo started waving to Grace every morning. Sometimes he'd draw her pictures, houses with bright roofs, people smiling inside. Grace kept every single one, folding them carefully and slipping them into her coat. Life stayed simple. Hard but honest. Until one morning, everything changed. Ethan was fixing an old washing machine when the street outside Went quiet. Too quiet. No traffic sounds. No voices, just the low hum of engines, deep, powerful, unfamiliar. Leah looked up. Dad, what's that? Ethan stepped to the window. 4 black SUVs rolled slowly down the street, glossy and imposing, their windows tinted dark. They moved with purpose, not lost, not passing through. They stopped. Right in front of Ethan's shop, Grace stood frozen near the mailbox, fear flashing across her face. People from nearby stores stepped outside, whispering. Someone pulled out a phone. The first SUV door opened. Then the second. Men in dark suits stepped out. Scanning the area, Ethan's heart began to pound. He didn't know why they were there. He only knew one thing. Whatever those SUVs had come for, it had something to do with the woman he fed every single day. The men didn't rush. That was the strangest part. They moved slowly, deliberately, like they knew exactly where they were and had all the time in the world. Their shoes clicked against the pavement and clean. Even steps too clean for this street. Ethan stepped outside instinctively, wiping grease from his hands onto his apron. His stomach tightened, not from guilt, but from instinct. Years of scraping by had taught him to be alert when things didn't make sense. Grace took a step back from the mailbox. No, she whispered, almost to herself. Ethan noticed the change immediately. The way her shoulders stiffened. The way her eyes darted, not confused, but afraid. One of the men approached her first. He was tall, gray at the temples, his suit pressed so sharply it looked painful. Miss Harper, he said calmly. Grace flinched at the name. I told you, she said, voice shaking. I don't want to go back. Ethan's breath caught. Miss Harper? That wasn't the name she'd given him. The man didn't raise his voice. We're not here to force you. But it's time. Time for what? Ethan stepped forward before he could stop himself. Hey, he said, placing himself slightly between them. Is there a problem? The man turned to him, surprised, but not annoyed. He studied Ethan's oil-stained apron, the small shop behind him, the child peeking nervously through the doorway. No problem at all, the man replied. This doesn't concern you. Grace grabbed Ethan's sleeve. Please, she whispered. Don't let them take me. Those words cut deeper than any threat. Ethan didn't know what was happening. He didn't know who these people were, but he knew fear when he saw it. Real fear. The kind that doesn't come from being homeless, but from running from something much bigger. She's not going anywhere, Ethan said firmly. Not unless she wants to. The man hesitated, then nodded slightly as if respecting the stance. That's fair, he said. Then perhaps we should explain. He gestured toward the largest SUV. The door opened, and then everyone froze. A woman stepped out, elegant, composed, her presence commanding without effort. She wore a long coat despite the mild weather, her posture straight, her eyes sharp and observant. Her gaze landed first on Grace, emotion cracked through her calm. There you are, the woman said softly. Grace's knees buckled. Ethan caught her before she fell. I looked for you for months, the woman continued, taking slow steps forward. You disappeared. Grace's voice broke. I didn't disappear. I ran. The street had gone completely silent now. Shop owners, passers-by, even Leo stood frozen, sensing that something enormous was unfolding. The woman's eyes finally shifted to Ethan. And you must be Ethan, she said. Ethan blinked. I'm sorry. Do I know you? She smiled gently. No, but I know you. That didn't make sense. Nothing did. I've watched you, the woman continued, her voice steady. Every morning. The food. The way you speak to her. To your son. Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck. If this is about her being outside, she's not bothering anyone. The woman shook her head. This isn't about complaints. She turned back to Grace. It's about coming home. Grace's face twisted in pain. That place was never my home. The woman stepped closer, lowering her voice. It was before you lost everything. Ethan's mind raced. Lost everything? Grace pulled her arm free gently and faced Ethan, tears spilling now without restraint. I didn't lie to you, she said quickly. I just didn't tell you everything. Ethan nodded. You don't owe me explanations. Her breath hitched. I used to have a life, a family, a name that mattered. She laughed bitterly. Then one mistake, and they took it all. The woman's eyes softened, not with anger, but regret. Your husband died, the woman said quietly. And when the investigation started, you ran. The word husband landed like thunder. Ethan stared at Grace. She had never mentioned a husband, never mentioned death, never mentioned wealth. I didn't steal anything. Grace cried. I just didn't know who to trust anymore. The woman closed her eyes briefly. You could have trusted me. Grace shook her head. Everyone always says that. After, Ethan felt like the ground had shifted under his feet. The woman standing in front of him, this wasn't law enforcement. This wasn't some private security issue. This was family or something close to it. Have you ever had someone help you when you felt like the whole world had turned its back on you? Right, yes, and if you want, share their name. Sometimes gratitude deserves to be spoken. The woman took a breath, then turned fully to Ethan. You've been feeding my sister, she said. Ethan's heart skipped. Sister? The woman nodded. Grace Harper is my younger sister. And before she vanished, she was the wife of one of the most powerful men in the state. Ethan felt dizzy. 4 SUVs. Dark suits. The fear. The silence. It finally made sense. And suddenly, Ethan understood this wasn't a rescue. This was a reckoning. And the small kindness he had offered without a second thought had just stepped into a world far bigger than his shop could ever hold. The street felt tighter now, like the buildings had leaned in to listen. Grace stood shaking, her hands clenched into fists at her sides, as if holding herself together took all the strength she had left. Ethan stayed close, not protective in a heroic way, just present, solid, the same way he'd been every morning with a paper bag and quiet respect. Leo peeked from the doorway, eyes wide. Ethan gave him a small nod. I'm here. The woman in the coat, Grace's sister, took another step forward. You didn't just lose your husband, she said carefully. You lost the life built around him. The company. The house. The friends who disappeared the moment questions were asked. Grace's jaw tightened. They weren't friends. No, the woman admitted. They weren't. Ethan listened, piecing it together slowly. Grace hadn't been homeless her whole life. She'd fallen hard, from a height most people never reached. And instead of landing softly, she'd hit every sharp edge on the way down. I didn't run because I was guilty, Grace said, voice raw. I ran because I was tired of being handled, questioned, watched. I just wanted to breathe without someone deciding what I should say next. Her sister nodded, eyes glossy. I know, but when you vanished, everything froze. Assets, accounts, investigations. People thought you were hiding something. Grace laughed bitterly. I was hiding myself. Besuited men stayed back, giving space now. This wasn't a capture. It was a conversation that had waited too long. Ethan finally spoke. What happens now? The sister looked at him with something close to gratitude. Now she has a choice. Grace turned sharply. Do I? Yes, the woman said. Come back. We'll clear your name properly. Or you stay, but the world you left will keep moving without answers. Grace closed her eyes. Ethan watched her carefully. This wasn't about money or power. It was about whether safety felt louder than fear. I don't know how to go back, Grace whispered. Ethan spoke gently but clearly. You don't have to decide today. Everyone looked at him. She's been surviving out here, he continued. You don't walk away from survival overnight. It takes time to remember how to live. Grace opened her eyes and looked at him. I never told you any of this. And you still saw you, Ethan finished. That doesn't change. Her sister studied Ethan differently now. Not as a shop owner. Not as an obstacle. But as something rare. Why did you help her? She asked quietly. Ethan shrugged. She was hungry. That was it. No speeches. No moral flexing, just truth. The sister nodded once. Then at least let us help in return. A hotel, doctors, clean clothes. No pressure. Grace hesitated, then looked at Ethan. He nodded. I'll still be here. Her breath broke. She hugged him sudden, tight, shaking. Ethan stood still until she pulled back. I don't know who I'd be without you, she whispered. Ethan smiled sadly. Someone who deserves the same kindness you gave me by trusting me. The SUVs didn't leave right away. They waited, gave Grace time to pack the few things she owned, mostly Leo's drawings, folded and worn from being held too often. When the last door closed, the street slowly exhaled. Conversations resumed. Engines passed. Life pretended nothing extraordinary had happened, but Ethan knew better. That night, the shop felt emptier. Leo sat at the counter, unusually quiet. Is Grace coming back tomorrow? Ethan paused. Not tomorrow. Leo nodded slowly. Did we help her? Yes, Ethan said. We did. Leo smiled, satisfied. Later alone, Ethan locked the shop and leaned against the door. His chest felt heavy but warm. He hadn't expected gratitude. He hadn't expected reward. Still, something tugged at his thoughts. Grace's sister had said help in return. The next morning, Ethan found an envelope taped to the shop door. No logo. No seal. Just his name. Inside was a note, handwritten. You gave my sister dignity when the world only saw a scandal. I won't forget that. And beneath it, a business card. No title. No company name. Just a phone number. Ethan stared at it for a long moment, unsure if this was the beginning of something good or something complicated. Now let me ask you, what's one small good thing you've done for someone recently? Even if no one noticed? Share it below. Sometimes kindness feels invisible. Until it ends single quotes T. Ethan slipped the card into his wallet and opened the shop for the day. The bell rang. A customer walked in. Life continued. But somewhere out there, the quiet kindness of a single dad had reached a place of power. And power had finally noticed. The days after Grace left felt strangely hollow. Ethan kept the same routine, opened the shop at 8. Brewed cheap coffee, sorted broken radios and cracked screens, but the sidewalk outside looked wrong without her. The faded blue mailbox stood alone now, its paint peeling quietly in the sun. Leo noticed too. She liked the corner, he said one morning, coloring up the counter. The sun hit her face there. Ethan nodded. Yeah, it did. Grace called once, late at night. Her voice sounded steadier but careful, like someone walking on new ground. They put me in a hotel, she said. Doctors checked me out. I forgot what it feels like to sleep without listening for footsteps. I'm glad, Ethan replied. There was a pause. I missed the shop, she admitted. And the mornings, so do we. They didn't say goodbye when they hung up. They didn't need to. A week later, a black sedan, only one this time, parked across the street. No sirens, no spectacle. Just a man in a plain coat who stepped inside the shop and introduced himself as Aaron. I represent the Harper family office, he said calmly. I'm here to talk about options. Ethan wiped his hands. I don't sell the shop. Aaron smiled. We're not here to buy. He laid out papers, permits, grants, community funding, a proposal to restore the block, low-interest loans, apprenticeships for locals. Ethan's shop listed as a hub. You fed someone when you didn't have to, Aaron said. Grace told us that's who you are. We want to invest in people like that. Ethan read slowly, carefully. This wasn't charity. It was partnership. I won't put my name on anything that pushes people out, Ethan said. Aaron nodded. That was our first condition too. They shook hands. No cameras. No pressed out change arrived quietly. The shop got new equipment. Ethan hired 2 neighbors. Leo started doing homework at a clean desk by the window. The sidewalk out front got fixed. A bench appeared near the mailbox. People began stopping by, not just for repairs, but to talk. One afternoon, a woman came in holding a paper bag. For you, she said shyly. Inside were sandwiches. For, in case someone needs them. Ethan swallowed. Thank you. Grace returned months later. Not in a convoy. Not in a coat that tried to hide her. She walked up the street with her sister beside her, eyes taking everything in like she was seeing a memory made solid. Leo ran to her. I kept your pictures safe. She laughed and hugged him. I knew you would. They sat on the bench. Sunlight hit the sidewalk just right. I'm not staying long, Grace said softly. I'm testifying. Clearing my name, it's hard, Ethan nodded. You're doing it. She looked at the shop. You changed this place. Ethan shook his head. You started it. She reached into her bag and handed him an envelope. Inside was a simple letter, no legal words, no money, just a promise to fund meals across the district. No names attached. For the people who sit where the sun hits, Grace said. Ethan felt his chest tighten. If that moment hit you hard, leave up. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. The trial ended quietly too. No headlines worth keeping. Grace's name cleared. The whispers faded. She chose a smaller life after one with boundaries, and mornings she could breathe through. On her last visit, she stood at the door. You never asked me to explain, she said. Ethan smiled. You explained enough by being here? When she left, the bell rang softly, same as always. Weeks passed. Then months. Ethan learned that kindness doesn't always come back as gratitude. Sometimes it comes back as responsibility, as choice, as the chance to decide who gets a seat in the shade. One evening, as he locked up, a boy hovered near the bench. Thin jacket, nervous eyes, shops closed, Ethan said gently. Then paused. But I've got tea. The boy nodded. Inside, Leo poured water carefully. Serious as a grown man. Sit where it's warm, Leo said. Ethan watched. Heart full and steady. The world didn't change overnight. It never does. But on that block by a faded mailbox in a small repair shop, something lasting had taken root, and Ethan understood now. The biggest reveals aren't about who someone used to be. They're about who we choose to be. When the moment asks quietly. Winter came early that year. The mornings turned sharp and quiet. Breath visible in the air. Ethan opened the shop before sunrise now, heater humming softly, hands stiff as he flipped the sign to open. The bench by the mailbox stayed occupied more often, sometimes by familiar faces. Sometimes by new ones drifting through with nowhere else to go. The sandwiches didn't stop, neither did the tea. What changed was the wait. More people came. Word traveled. Some stayed grateful. Some stayed angry. A few stayed too long, expecting more than Ethan could give. Kindness, he was learning, didn't come with instructions. One afternoon, a man stormed into the shop, voice raised, accusing Ethan of favoritism. You help some people and not others, he snapped. Who made you the judge? Ethan didn't raise his voice. I don't judge. he said calmly. I just don't turn away everyone. The man left angry. Ethan sat down hard after, hands shaking, that night. After Leo fell asleep on the couch with a book on his chest, Ethan stayed up staring at the ceiling. Grace's words echoed in his mind. Responsibility. She'd said it gently, but she'd meant it. Doing good didn't mean doing easy. The call came 3 days later. From Grace's sister Dot, her voice was tight this time. Controlled but strained. There's a complication, she said. The investigation reopened. Someone is pushing a narrative. They're saying Grace manipulated public sympathy, that the help she received was staged. Ethan closed his eyes. That's not true. I know, she said, but truth isn't always what moves. Fastest. The ask came quietly. We need statements, witnesses, people willing to say they helped her, without knowing who she was. Ethan's chest tightened. People like him, people who would now be dragged into something much bigger than a sidewalk and a sandwich. If I speak, Ethan said slowly, this won't stay small. No, she admitted. It won't. After the call, Ethan sat in silence for a long time. If he stayed quiet, Grace would likely be fine eventually. The family had resources, lawyers. Timed out if he spoke, things would change for him, for Leo, for the shop. Scrutiny, questions, doubt, the kind of attention that doesn't care about good intentions. He looked at Leo sleeping. He thought of the boy on the bench, of the woman with the paper bag, of Grace standing in the cold, proud enough to never ask for more. Doing good when it was invisible had been easy. Doing good when it cost something was different. The next morning, Ethan gathered the neighbors in the shop before opening. He told them everything. Not the drama, just the truth. I might be asked to speak, he said. It could bring trouble. I won't blame anyone who wants distance. No one spoke at first. Then the woman who'd brought sandwiches stepped forward. If they question your kindness, she said quietly, they question all of ours. Others nodded. The hearing was set for a gray Tuesday morning. Ethan sat in a plain room with wood-paneled walls. Hands folded, voice steady as he spoke. He didn't defend Grace with passion. He didn't attack anyone. He told the truth. She sat outside my shop because the sun was there, he said. I fed her because she was hungry. I didn't know who she was. I still don't care. There were murmurs, side glances, notes taken. Afterward, a reporter approached him. Do you regret getting involved? Ethan paused, thought carefully. No, he said. I regret that kindness needs defending. The backlash came quickly. A few customers stopped coming. A comment online accused him of chasing attention. Someone spray painted a word on the bench one night. Fake. Ethan scrubbed it off before. Leo saw. He didn't tell Grace any of this. She had enough to carry. Late one evening, as Ethan locked up, Leo looked up at him. Dad, are we in trouble? Ethan knelt. No, we're just being tested. Leo nodded, trusting. You always say tests make you stronger. Ethan smiled softly. Only if you don't cheat. Now be honest with yourself for a moment. If someone hurt you, doubted you, or made your kindness harder than it needed to be, could you still forgive them? Type forgive if you think you could, or never. If it would be too much. The decision was no longer theoretical. Ethan knew what was coming next. Either Grace would be cleared completely, or the world would demand a price for the help he gave freely. And standing in the cold, hand on the shop door, Ethan understood something with absolute clarity. The real cost of kindness isn't money. It's courage. The ruling came on a Thursday morning, slipped into the news cycle like an afterthought. No dramatic headline. No breaking alert. Just a short statement buried halfway down the page. All allegations dismissed. No evidence of manipulation or misconduct found. Grace was cleared. Completely. Ethan read it twice to be sure. Then a third time, just to let the words settle into his chest. He closed his eyes and exhaled. A long breath he felt like he'd been holding for months. The shop door opened behind him. Leo ran in, backpack bouncing. "Dad, Mrs. Allen said you were on the news." Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, but not for anything exciting." Leo tilted his head. "You were helping someone?" "That's usually how it happens," Ethan said. Outside, the bench by the mailbox was empty for once. Snow had dusted it lightly overnight, the wood pale and quiet. Ethan grabbed a cloth and wiped it down anyway. Like a habit his hands knew by heart, people started coming by, not in crowds, not with applause. Just one at a time. The woman with the paper bags. The man who'd once accused him of favoritism. A teenager who hovered near the door, then finally asked if he could help sweep. Some apologized. Some didn't. Ethan didn't keep score, Grace called that evening. Her voice sounded lighter than it had in years. "It's over," she said. "I know." "I'm sorry," she added softly. "For the trouble?" Ethan shook his head, even though she couldn't see him. "You didn't cause it. You survived it." There was a pause. "I'm leaving the city," Grace said. "Not running this time, choosing." "I'm glad," Ethan replied. She hesitated. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said. "You trusted me." They hung up gently, like people who didn't need to cling to stay connected. The backlash faded slowly. The spray paint never came back. Customers returned, some quietly embarrassed, others openly supportive. The shop stayed small but steady. Honest. Winter loosened its grip. The snow melted. The sun found its way back to the sidewalk. One morning, Ethan arrived early and found someone had left a thermos on the bench. No note, just warmth, waiting. Ethan smiled. At the end of the week, the neighborhood held a small gathering, not planned, not announced. Someone brought soup. Someone brought bread. Kids ran between the shops, laughter echoing off brick walls that had seen harder days. Ethan stood back, watching Leo help a younger boy pour tea without spilling. His chest filled with something deep and calm. This wasn't recognition. This was community. Grace's sister stopped by quietly before leaving town. "In SUVs this time?" "Just a simple coat, tired eyes." "You changed things," she said. Ethan shook his head. "Things were already changing. I just didn't stop them." She smiled. "That's rarer than you think." As the sun dipped lower, casting long golden light across the street, Ethan walked up and sat on the bench. For the first time since winter began, he didn't feel tired. He felt steady. If you believe that love still wins, even when it's tested, doubted, and made inconvenient, comment amen. Let this space fill with hope. Someone reading this right now might need to see it. Ethan leaned back, eyes closed, listening to the hum of a block that felt alive again. He understood now that kindness doesn't end when the crisis does. It settles. It spreads. It waits patiently for the next moment it's needed. And as the light faded and the street grew quiet once more, Ethan knew the story wasn't about Grace anymore. It was about what stayed behind after she left. Something fragile, something real, something that would need protecting. Just like kindness always does. Spring arrived slowly, like it wasn't sure it would be welcomed. The first warm morning caught Ethan by surprise. He opened the shop door and paused, letting the air roll in soft, almost shy. The bench by the mailbox was dry now. Someone had planted a small pot of yellow flowers beside it. No name, no note. Leo noticed first. "Dad," he said, tugging Ethan's sleeve. "Look, they're smiling flowers." Ethan crouched to Leo's level. "Yeah," he said. "They are." Work returned to its rhythm. Radios crackled back to life. Fans hummed. Old machines got second chances. People lingered longer than they needed to, trading stories while Ethan fixed what others had given up on. He liked it that way. One afternoon, a city inspector stopped by, clipboard, neutral face. He checked permits, nodded at the bench, scribbled something, then said, this block's become a model. Fewer complaints. More foot traffic. Ethan wiped his hands. People take care of places that take care of them. The inspector paused, then nodded. That tracks. Grace sent a photo a week later. A small apartment. Sunlight through a window. A mug on a table. The caption read, "First morning that feels like mine." Ethan smiled and typed back, "Keep it." He didn't need updates. He needed to know she was okay. The shop hired another apprentice, a quiet kid named Marcus who showed up early and stayed late. Grateful for a chance. Ethan taught him patience before technique. If you rush, he said, you miss the problem. Leo helped too, sweeping, labeling screws, learning names for tools that sounded like small adventures. The shop felt fuller, not louder. Fuller out one evening as they closed. A man hovered at the door, well-dressed, nervous. He cleared his throat. "I'm looking for Ethan, that's me." The man extended a hand. "I run a local foundation. We're funding neighborhood initiatives. Someone suggested I come here." Ethan glanced at the bench, the flowers, the people drifting past. "We don't do programs," he said gently. "We do people." The man smiled. "That's what I heard." They talked. No contracts signed. No banners promised. Just alignment. Support without strings. Help that didn't demand a spotlight. After he left, Leo looked up. "Are we famous now?" Ethan laughed. "No, we're useful." That night, Ethan sat on the bench alone. The street hummed. A bus sighed at the corner. Laughter drifted from a nearby stoop. He thought about the months behind him, the fear, the questions, the costs. He thought about how close he'd come to stepping. Back when kindness got complicated, he was glad he hadn't, because what had grown here wasn't a story to tell. It was a place to return to. A woman approached, with a small child, hesitating. "Is it okay if we sit?" she asked, pointing to the bench. "Of course," Ethan said, scooting over. They sat. The child swung their legs. The sun hit the sidewalk just right. "Someone told me," the woman said quietly, "that this is a good place." Ethan nodded. "It is. If you believe love still wins, quietly, steadily, without asking permission, comment amen. Let hope fill this space." Someone scrolling right now might need to see it and keep going. The weeks that followed didn't bring miracles. They brought consistency, which Ethan learned was better. When trouble came, people talked it through. When hunger showed up, food appeared. When anger flared, it burned out faster than before. The bench stayed clean. The flowers kept blooming. On the first warm Saturday of the year, the block closed to traffic for an afternoon. Chalk on the pavement. Music from a tinny speaker. Soup simmering in a borrowed pot. No permits. No speeches. Ethan watched Leo teach Marcus how to fix a loose hinge. He watched neighbors laugh with people they'd once avoided. He watched the sun move and felt time slow just enough to be noticed. Grace called it dusk. "I walked past a bench today," she said. I sat down. The sun hit my face. Ethan smiled. "Good. I'm proud of you," she added. "For staying. I learned from you," he said. They hung up. No promises. No nostalgia. Just peace. As night settled, Ethan locked the shop and sat on the bench one last time. He realized something simple and strong. Kindness didn't end with a thank you. It continued as maintenance. As listening. As showing up again tomorrow. And as the streetlights flickered on soft, steady Reliable Ethan felt ready for whatever came next, because this place wasn't built on luck. It was built on care. The block learned how to breathe together. It wasn't dramatic. No ribbons cut. No speeches given. Just a rhythm that settled indoors, opening on time, lights staying on, people recognizing one another's footsteps. Ethan noticed it most in the mornings. The bench filled and emptied without tension now. The shop bell rang with familiar hands pushing the door. Leo grew taller. Marcus grew steadier. The flowers by the mailbox were replaced once, then twice, each time by someone different. Care had become shared. One afternoon, a storm rolled in fast. Rain slammed the pavement, sudden and loud. Ethan ushered people inside, towels appearing from nowhere. Tea steamed on the counter. Laughter broke through the thunder like it had always been waiting. Ivan caught himself smiling at the sound. After the storm, he found an envelope slipped under the door. Inside were photos printed, not digital. The block, from angles he didn't recognize. The bench. The shop. Kids chalking the sidewalk. On the back of one photo, a simple line. For the record, this is what it looked like when people decided to care. Ethan tucked the photos into a drawer. He didn't label Grace, send a message later that week. I started a small program. Quiet help. No names. Ethan replied with a thumbs up and a heart. Nothing else was needed. The city came by once more, this time with a proposal to formalize the space. Ethan listened, then declined politely. Leave it light, he said. Heavy things sink. They agreed. As summer approached, Ethan found himself doing less fixing and more listening. People came with stories instead of broken things. He learned where the sun hit best at different hours. He learned which days needed soup and which needed silence. One evening, Leo asked, Dad, how do you know when to help? Ethan thought about it. When someone's asking without words? Leo nodded like that made perfect sense. A man who'd once argued with Ethan brought a toolbox by and left it on the counter. For whoever needs it, he said. No apology. No explanation. Ethan accepted it. The shop didn't make him rich. It made him useful, which felt like enough. At dusk, Ethan sat on the bench and watched the street glow. He felt the familiar tug, the instinct to do more, to fix faster. He let it pass. Some things didn't need pushing. The world, he realized, hadn't become kinder everywhere, but it had become kinder here, and that mattered. The morning felt ordinary in the best way. Ethan unlocked the shop just as the sun climbed over the rooftops. Light settling gently on the bench, the flowers, the clean stretch of sidewalk that had once felt forgotten. Leo followed him in, backpack slung over one shoulder, humming to himself. Dad, he said, stopping at the door. Remember when Grace used to sit here? Ethan nodded. I do. Leo looked thoughtful. I think she helped us too. Ethan smiled. She did. Inside, the day unfolded in small moments. A radio brought back to life. A hinge tightened. Tea poured and shared without asking. Nothing headline-worthy. Nothing dramatic. And yet, everything felt complete. Ethan stepped outside during a quiet moment and sat on the bench. He rested his hands on his knees and let himself remember the beginning, not with pain, but with clarity. The cold mornings, the paper bag, the choice to see a person instead of a problem. He understood now what that choice had done. It hadn't brought 4 SUVs for him. It hadn't brought power or praise. It had brought connection. It had taught a block how to look after itself. It had taught a child what strength looks like. It had taught a man that doing good doesn't require permission. If this story stayed with you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like not for a channel or a video, but for the people who keep choosing kindness even when it's unnoticed. One click can be your way of saying, I felt this. I see them. Leo came back outside, holding a small paper sign he made. He taped it gently near the bench. You can sit here. Ethan's chest tightened, not with sadness, but with something warm and steady as the street filled and emptied. As seasons turned the way they always do, Ethan kept opening the shop, kept making tea, kept fixing what others were ready to throw away, and when someone new sat on the bench hesitant, tired, unsure, Ethan didn't ask for a story. He already knew enough, because the truth was simple, and it didn't need explaining. You don't change the world all at once. You change one place by staying kind there, and sometimes that's more than enough.